Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. Today, the first person impeached in the state's 140-year history. Jim Denton has the rundown.
Sam State Controller Kathy Augustine was impeached by the legislature on willful charges that she had admitted to. She says she has a political future. Others say she doesn't. We'll ask her today.
And coming up on the Power Pundit panel today, Paul Mozen, Scott Craigie, and Dick Gammick. It's all coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
If you think Wells Fargo is only checking accounts, you're not seeing the whole picture. Online brokerage, mutual funds, mortgages, and home equity accounts. So get more than free checking and start reaching your goals today. Now you get the picture. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
If you own a business and want to maximize your company's potential, join the Retail Association of Nevada. Our membership benefits include the Nevada Retail Network Self-Insured Group, providing workers' compensation coverage that can lower your rates. That savings can go directly to your bottom line. We are an effective pro-business organization that lobbies on behalf of our business members. The Retail Association of Nevada, protecting Nevada businesses for 35 years.
When you need a new employee, how can you be sure who you're really hiring? A background investigation by Employer Links will uncover criminal records, verify the applicant's education, check their credit history and Social Security verification. An investigation will research professional licenses and driver's licenses and let you know why they're unemployed. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
It's the next best thing to having your own wine cellar. Come to the Bonanza Casino for a first and fine dining, reasonably priced wines. When you dine at Cactus Creek Southwestern Steakhouse, you can also enjoy a fine bottle of wine at just about the same price you'd pay at the Vineyard, Silver Oak, Robert Mondavi, Rombauer, Cape Red, Jordan, and Duckhorn, just to name a few. And at the lowest prices of any restaurant or casino in Northern Nevada. And remember, all fine wines are not in wine cellars. They're in the Cactus Creek at the Bonanza Casino, where locals come to play.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad on No Holds Barred Political Forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And we welcome to the program State Controller Kathy Augustine, the only elected official in 140 years of state history to be impeached and convicted of malfeasance in office. She admitted violating the state's ethics laws and was fined $15,000. The Senate convicted her of illegally using state equipment and facilities to help her re-election campaign and gave her a formal reprimand. The Senate dismissed 2 more serious charges. Welcome to the program, Kathy. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Right off the top, you made a payment plan for that $15,000 fine, correct?
Yes.
You had some very high-priced lawyer talent on your team and for an extended period of time.
They're also on a payment plan.
Okay. May I ask how much that cost? And are you
No, I
paying
think
this yourself?
that's attorney-client privilege.
Okay. And is that all going to be your burden?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay. Jim?
Kathy, you have gotten reams of negative publicity the last few months. You've had 3 highly regarded state officials call for your resignation. You've had 3 newspapers call for your resignation. I read the other day that you're considering running for Congress, and I guess my question to you is this. How do you intend to do that given the volumes of negative publicity that you've received?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I have to correct you, Jim. I think I've gotten negative publicity now for about 6 months, not just the past few months. It has been brutal. And I don't think that, I can say what I'm going to do in a couple of years. I think what's really important is for me to go back now, which I have done, and continue to do the job that the people in this state elected me to do for the next 2 years. And then I think we can see what's going on in the future. I know there's been a lot of people out there speculating what I was going to do in the future, but I think it's way too early. You know, I have a job to do, and
You were one of the people speculating what you were going to do, though. You're the one that said you might take a look at running for Congress.
Yeah,
no one else suggested that.
Well, no, I think that that's what other people were talking about, because one of the things that did come up in the trial was one of my accusers said I had to be stopped because she said, before you know it, I could be in Congress, and that's one of the statements she made to the investigators. And I really think that that was the impetus on the press comment on the congressional run. But as I said, it's way too early, and I'm not going to say anything about running in the future. We have to see what happens in the next 2 years.
Mary Kincaid-Chauncey also thought she could run after being indicted, but without being convicted, and for the Clark County Commission and was soundly defeated in that race. You admitted to 3 offenses before the Ethics Commission. When did it morph from I did it to it's all about disgruntled employees?
Pardon me?
When did it morph from being I did it to being about disgruntled employees?
The Ethics Commission complaint never said I did it. It said I reasonably should have known that the activity was going on. It did not say that I knew.
Did you, excuse me, did you not willfully admit to the conduct in the office?
I had a choice to make. I could either face criminal charges from the Attorney General's office, or they told me that I would admit to 3 willful violations. And I think I did what most individuals would do, that I went to the Ethics Commission and did the stipulation and, went and didn't, I guess, excuse me, I'm trying to get the right term. I forgo hearing. And just entered into the stipulation.
So what you're saying is that you willfully admitted to the charges that were brought before you at the Ethics Commission, correct?
Yes, I had wanted to plead an unwillful violation, but I was told that that was not an option because I really believed that this did not rise to a willful violation, or the allegations were not that egregious, but nobody had ever questioned or cross-examined the witness, and at that time, as I said, I wasn't given a choice.
But if you weren't guilty,
why not go to court and say, fine, take me to court?
And have done with it?
Well, the problem is once you are criminally indicted, you are immediately removed from office. And I didn't feel that I could be effective in my job because I wouldn't, in fact, be in my job. And I think Mr. Gardner testified at the trial that, in fact, they thought that a criminal trial wouldn't even occur until December of 2005. And by the time it went through all the cogs in the wheel, I mean, it would have been the end of my term.
Did you offer to resign in a deal through your attorney with the Attorney General in order not to pursue any charges so that you could, say, resign for health reasons or personal reasons or any of those things, as I have read?
I didn't offer. However, one of my lead attorneys, Mr. Arascata, had gone to Mr. Gardner and said, you know, what are our options here? Let's explore some of the options. And that was one of the options that Mr. Arascata had put on the table when he was negotiating with the Attorney General's office. I was not privy to a lot of those discussions, nor was I present in any of the discussions with the Attorney General.
The attorney would not have made it.
Right, but they came back and said, absolutely not. The only way that I could resign is to admit wrongdoing. And at that point, I said, no, I'm not going to do that.
I guess my question is, were you considering resigning under the set of circumstances that your attorneys were trying to cut the deal?
I actually hadn't considered anything at the time. I was so, I think, broadsided or so surprised at the allegations and what I had heard had actually been going on for the previous year, all of 2003. I didn't know about this until the investigators came to my office in January of this year. So it'd been a whole year that the Attorney General had actually had this case. And so I was just trying to really sort out, you know, what was happening and what was really going on. But as I said, when it came back from the Attorney General's office that the only way that they would take a resignation is to admit to wrongdoing, I wouldn't do that.
Let's take a break. We'll come back with more questions for State Controller Kathy Augustine, and we appreciate her being here. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by Sunbelt Communication.
For a hole in your roof or a whole new roof, Ken Dillon, owner of Van Dyne Roofing, can get it fixed with his eyes closed.
Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The Resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
It's America's largest historical district, and it's fun for the entire family. Virginia City is where the West comes alive every day, from train rides to gunslingers. Your gang can explore mines and interesting museums, visit historic saloons, and do some great shopping. Virginia City is the ultimate in family entertainment, and it's very affordable. Come up and stay overnight in our hotels, motels, and RV park. Virginia City, the Wild West at its best.
So, who do you use for workers' comp?
Pro Group Management.
Ah, I've heard some good things about them.
Oh, you bet. Employee background checks, safety training, claim seminars. Oh, and here's the great part. If you have an issue, they work for you, not against you.
Sounds perfect. And expensive.
Well, that's the best part. They saved me 30%. I've heard they've saved others 50%.
Works for me. Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, here with State Controller Kathy Augustine, Jim Denton helping me today. Your defense never called a witness in your favor, and you never testified in your own defense. Wasn't that kind of taking a gamble?
Well, I thought that once, and my legal team thought that once they had been able to cross-examine the prosecution or the state's witnesses, because nobody had ever done that before. And once their stories fell apart and they were under the scrutiny of cross-examination, we felt we didn't need to call any witnesses, even though we had had 37 witnesses on our list that we had submitted. We had whittled that down a little bit. We hadn't planned on actually calling all of them, but it was not necessary.
But you must have felt incredibly confident. I mean, was this more political, where you were able to count the votes and know where this was headed?
No, actually, I wasn't confident, but I knew in my heart that the truth would come out when they were finally questioned, and that was one thing that had never been done in this whole proceeding.
But wouldn't it have come out more if you had been there to speak on your own behalf? I mean,
I actually was on my own witness list. I would have taken the stand if it had been necessary.
You know, there are a couple things.
I need to follow up. How did you think that wasn't necessary? If you weren't feeling confident, why did your attorneys, at your direction, again, because you're the client, they do what you tell them to do, called no witnesses, and you never said one word in your own defense, yet you're more than willing to come onto this program and others in your own defense?
Well, the first article of impeachment had already been dismissed after the prosecution's case, or the prosecutor had rested, and then the second article was dismissed. So the third article, we just didn't feel it was necessary to parade all of the witnesses and take any more cost, any more taxpayer dollars or time. So we were able to wrap in 4 days.
And
so we just rested.
That's a couple of questions I want to ask you about, Kathy. You said at one point, or at least you were quoted as saying at one point, that if they, in effect, took you to trial, you were going to take a lot of people down with you.
No. I never said that. I never said that. I never said that because I wasn't talking to the press. I haven't talked to the press until this case has been over. I haven't talked to them for months, and that's been a big part of the problem, because I haven't been able to, or wasn't able to talk to the press. I wasn't able to get out our side of the story. But I know that there was a lot of speculation going on, what was going to happen, how long this was going to take. Could it take 2 to 6 weeks on a trial? You know, were other people going to be incriminated? I know that there was a lot of speculation out there.
Do you think the taxpayers of this state were well served by having to spend some $250,000 on this special session for this purpose when they were going in the session in February? I mean, you think with the budget problems we've had in the state that was a service to the taxpayers of the state to do that?
Well, I wasn't happy that the governor had called a special session, but that wasn't my call. You know, that was certainly the governor's call and the governor's decision to do that rather than wait till the beginning of the session.
Well, he said it would be much more expensive to do it when the session was in place, because it's the costs are considerably higher on a daily basis than it would have been for the special session.
Yeah. I know some of the senators, had questioned that as well, but that wasn't for me to decide or for me to question.
The thing I'm having trouble grasping here, and again, what I know about this is what I read in the paper, okay? That they were filling out forms and stuffing envelopes for your re-election campaign at your conference table, to which I understand you didn't know anything about it. And I guess what I'm asking you is, how can people be working at your conference table in your office on a continuous basis and you know nothing about it?
Well, actually, first of all, we have to say it wasn't a continuous basis. In fact, I took a polygraph to say that I believed that the activity was less than 10 hours a month that my executive assistant was performing, which I believed was in the statute for a nominal use. I was in the southern part of the state and the rural areas quite often during the 2002 re-election campaign. As you well know, the majority of the population is in Las Vegas, and when you're campaigning, that's a big part of where you need to be. And finally, these people were all told not to do this on state time, and actually admitted that they were told not to do it on state time.
The last thing, as I understand it, that these people testified under oath. And one of them said that you were looking to moving on to higher office because, quote, that you were too good for this big state.
I think that quote surprised everybody.
Well, it surprised me.
Yeah, including the prosecutor, because he just shook his head and looked over at us when that comment was made. And it's the first time that I had ever heard anything or anybody say that I would ever allude to that. And by gosh, I've been in elected office for 12 years, and I proudly serve this state, and I am proud to be a Nevadan, and I'm proud to be here.
You admit to being a tough boss, but do you suffer from temper tantrums? Are your staff afraid of you? Do you yell and scream, throw papers on employees' desks? Are any of those things true?
I am a tough boss, and I tend to run my office more like a business, not a bureaucracy. And I do expect that the job is done, and the job is done correctly. And I think that I have a wonderful staff, and they have done...
But do you truly treat them like that?
No, I think...
you don't yell, you don't scream,
I think
you don't
my
throw
executive
papers on people's
assistant
desks.
had greatly exaggerated what was going on, and I have to say we haven't had any incidences or any of the problems that we had experienced
Have you ever worked
previously,
for anybody
the
as
last
tough as
2
you?
years.
Have you ever worked for anybody as tough as you?
Oh, absolutely.
And how did you feel?
I knew that I had a job to do, especially when I was working in the airline industry, and we were under a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, getting flights covered and different things.
Now, it seems as controversy, though, has seemed to follow you from one office to another. You had the situation with your opponent in the Senate race, which you ultimately ended up apologizing for. You've had this situation. And through all of that, and I have to give you credit for this, you've run 2 very successful statewide campaigns, things that most people have never been able to do. They've cost you in the neighborhood of a couple $100,000 apiece, roughly, is what those... I guess my question is, where does Kathy Augustine go from here? And where does the money come from? I mean, I can see raising $200,000, but I'm going to tell you, Kathy, that if you consider running for a higher office than that, in the range of $2 million, I don't see where you get it.
You're right, that, and that's part of the problem, unfortunately, with some of the lower-end statewide candidates and races, is you're not able to raise the money for the higher ticket races. And in fact, I only raised $253,000, including in-kind contributions, to be exact, in 2002. And
I mean, I see Dean Heller being able to raise that kind of money. I see Brian Krolicki being able to raise
we're
that
almost out of time. I want to just throw one more thing in here. You were convicted on one count of impeachment of the articles of impeachment.
And received a censure.
And received a censure. Do you feel any remorse?
The remorse I feel is that the people of the state had to endure such a horrible thing, and that my friends and family were also put through it. It was very difficult for me personally.
You were convicted of using the state equipment, etc. Do you have any remorse about that?
Well, like I said the other day in a media interview, I can tell you that on my watch it'll never happen again, and that's basically what I did, was take the hit for it, because I said as a leader, and it happened on my watch, that the buck stops here, and that's why we went to the Ethics Commission and said I reasonably should have known that that was occurring, because you can't blame anybody else. When you're at the top, you have to take the hit yourself, and that's exactly what I did.
Okay, so you accept responsibility, but not remorse.
Well,
we're out of time.
You could say you apologize.
We're out of time. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate you doing this. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
When you need a new employee, how can you be sure who you're really hiring? A background investigation by Employer Links will uncover criminal records, verify the applicant's education, check their credit history and Social Security verification. An investigation will research professional licenses and driver's licenses and let you know why they're unemployed. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, joining us here, we have Dick Gammick, Washoe County District Attorney, Paul Mozen, a political activist, and Scott Craigie with Alrus Consulting. Jim Denton has been helping me out. Jim, your reflections on the interview we just did.
Well, I think Kathy was very open and forthcoming about what she believes happened. I think there are people that have other opinions on that, but I have to give Kathy a lot of credit for coming on the program and doing that. I wanted to ask Dick Gammick, and particularly the district attorney and Mr. Craigie, who have both been in government for a number of years, a question. And I'm going to make you both a member of the state senate. Was this a good deal? Did this thing come out the way it should have? Did the taxpayers of this state get their money's worth? Or did we blow $250,000 that we could have used for something else?
You get to show your jury worthiness.
That's quite a loaded question, because I've got a lot of criticism with the way this went down and with the procedure that went down. There were senators talking to the defense team every time a break was taken. There were senators doing news press conferences at the first day, saying that there wasn't enough evidence when the case hadn't even been presented to them yet. There were senators out talking in the hallway with people. There were senators talking to each other. It was completely foreign to us as far as a jury's concerned, and how they're supposed to conduct themselves and what they're supposed to do during the course of the event. So that makes it tough, and I think they need to really look at their rules if this does ever happen again, and come up with a procedure that at least appears to be a lot more fair. I'm not saying it was or wasn't.
It was more a political game than it was anything else, wasn't it?
Well, it definitely had that appearance. Whether it was or not, I wasn't down there all the time.
And that, for me, that's the biggest negative outcome of this whole thing. This whole process, regardless of who's responsible or whatever, this has further separated the legislature against itself.
I absolutely agree with that.
The fact of the matter is the Assembly is very angry with the Senate. The Senate's very angry with the Assembly before this happened, because of tax policies and other issues that set aside partisanship, that deal with policy differences that exist today in the legislature. Now, that has been given extra energy, a lot of extra energy, because the distrust was already there and because both sides believe the other side did the wrong thing. We're headed into a legislative session that's going to be a very, very difficult policy session, and the legislature is so seriously divided against itself, I'm not sure they can govern.
I think that's a good point. I
See,
think
I have a
that's a
hard
good
time-
point, and I think some of that's going to be left over from last year.
let's
It's the
let Paul in here.
hard
Jump
feelings
in, Paul.
syndrome.
Yeah, let me in here. I don't want to be politically correct because
We're never politically correct around here.
my take on the situation was this. The only thing I know about impeachment, and this is the only impeachment we've had, is the national impeachment, and that when you, after the Assembly renders articles of impeachment, it goes to the Senate for a trial, and if you're convicted in the Senate, you are removed from office. Somehow this process got all changed around by our Senate. I'm not sure that they did the people of Nevada a favor by doing that. I think the national precedent and the way it works nationally is that the person who is impeached and convicted is removed from office.
You know, Scott, I got a number of phone calls over the last couple of days from public employees who are terrified because of this, that they feel that there's absolutely no point in ever being a whistleblower.
Yeah, bad things happen when you're a whistleblower is the message.
Well, you know, when a person's a whistleblower dealing with a person that's their direct superior, there are a lot of protections that go well beyond a situation where you've got a constitutional officer and the process that constitutional officer goes through. Really, anybody who's out there who is a public employee who is concerned about stepping forward, dealing with an administrator or director or somebody inside your office, you don't have to have that fear. There are protections there that this exposes this on some level that the processes are not that same way.
But Scott, what do the voters say about all of this? You've got all this stuff going on in southern Nevada. You've got the county commissioners, former county commissioners that have been indicted. You've got the legislators that went through the whole, some being defeated, some not being defeated. What does this say to the public? All of this stuff going on.
Well, there's no question in my mind, and everybody here that's close to the electorate will have their own opinion. I believe that there is a growing lack of faith in governmental institutions across the board because it's more and more difficult for governmental institutions, whether regulators or legislators or city councilmen, to react positively when everybody wants no taxes and more services and all of the conflicts that are built into
Well, this doesn't have to do with no taxes and more services. This has to do with being indicted and being taken out of office.
There's this feeling of a lack of self-discipline that's being shown here, and it's not just here. Again, the battles among policymakers on policy issues are the same, and people don't understand why there can't be answers that are arrived at because they look simple from the outside.
Well, policy from this whole process just got muddled even worse. We had some pretty clear direction, pretty clear definitions on what was allowed and what was not allowed. That just even got messed up even worse now. So I don't know what the future holds as far as having any kind of ethical guidelines for people who are in office and how they're supposed to act.
I think Speaker Perkins is going to let us all know. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The Resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
And coming up tomorrow, Jim?
Sam, coming up tomorrow is statewide economic development, which has sizzling numbers, and John Esquaga, who's a fascinating guy.
We'll see you tomorrow.